Hey all, I'm going to give you a quick tour of our extended support for comments in your GraphQL schema. So HGE already supports putting descriptions on things in your GraphQL schema, and if you look at the documentation explorer here in the console, you can see that we already auto-generate comments for things in there. So for example, we've got our root field here and we've auto-generated a comment. If we go into the actual user itself, we've got an auto-generated comment here, so this is the type that represents a row out of our user table. You can see we've got some comments on columns here. We've got comments on computed fields, and so we already plucked some of that information out and displayed it in the GraphQL Explorer. Now, what you may not know, or maybe you do, is that for a lot of these things, we will also look at the comments that come off your database as well. So if we set a comment on the table in our Postgres database, we will automatically pull that comment and put it here in the GraphQL schema documentation. And if you put a comment on your columns, we pull it out and we use it here. And if you put a comment on the function that backs a computed field, we'll use it here as well. Now, that's all very well and good, but what if you don't want to use the comments that come off your database in your GraphQL schema? So perhaps those comments on the database are written really for your DBA types and aren't really appropriate for your GraphQL API users. Or perhaps you just don't want to leak your database schema details out to your API users. You want to have properly described descriptions for your API. So previously you couldn't really control what HGE did. We either auto-generated or we pull it off a comment off your database. So now you've got the ability to be able to control these GraphQL descriptions by setting explicit comments in your HGE metadata. So we can see if I switch over to the data tab, we've got this user table here. It's very standard. We've got a bunch of columns on here. And now if we switch over to an API view of this, this is kind of how that table is configured in the metadata at the moment. So we've got our user table, we've got some custom root fields, we've got some custom column names. So now what we're going to do is we're going to customize the comments with some new fields that we've added to the metadata. So we can add a comment here at the table level. Sorry, that should be here at the table level under configuration, and this comment will be used on the table object. And we can also set comments for all of the custom root fields as well. So for example, we could customize this one here, and now we can customize more than just the name. We can expand that out to an object, and we can set a comment here too. And the last place in here in this API call we can set comments on is on columns. Now, we previously had this custom column names property. Now we've deprecated that and we're replacing it with the column config property, which lets us be a little bit more extensible about the sorts of properties that we can set. So here now we can have a custom name to retain our existing surname custom name, and we can now add the new comment to that particular column, and so we can get rid of that old custom column names property. Now we still support that custom column names property, it's just deprecated. So if you are using the API, you'll probably want to start switching across to use the column config from now on, but for now we still do support it. Okay, so if we run this API call, that will set. We can come back to our browser, and if we go back to API, I'll go back to our query root and have a look at user. Hello, look there on our root field, we've got the comment that we set from the metadata. If we go into here, we've got our comment that we set on the row type. And if we go down and we have a look at, here we go, our surname, there's our column comment. Now there's one more place you're able to set a comment on, but it's not on the table. We don't do it on the set table customization, and that is on computed fields. So computed fields actually already have a comment property, but previously up until now we haven't used that for anything other than just a comment that you can see in the console. But now we're actually using it to populate the description in your GraphQL schema. So if you set this, so if we set it to name of the user, and so this is just going to drop the field and add it back again. And we go away and come back to this, refreshes, go back down to our user and have a look at our computed field. We can see our comment is now used there. So now I've demoed this feature using the metadata API directly. So out of Insomnia here, just doing the API calls directly. And that's because we currently don't have support for setting these comments in the console directly yet, except for computed fields. There's already a field there for that, so you can use it. But never fear, we are actually working on support for setting this stuff in the console, but we've shipped API support first, and the console stuff will come later. Yeah, so that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this little demo, and I hope you'll go off and use these new features and improve your GraphQL API schema for your customers. Thanks.